All right, let's fire this thing off. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Rise Up podcast. My name is David Schultz, and today we are going to continue our conversation regarding the ISA 95 standard. On our last video, we did parts 2 and 4. Today, we're going to talk about parts 3. And joining me again is Rene Verleg. So, Rene, could you make a quick introduction again?
Hi, good day. Hi, David. Yes, my name is Rene Verleg. Working about 17 years in manufacturing IT now. Did a lot of multi-site implementations, mainly on MES systems, and always used the ISA 95 as a guideline.
Yeah, as I think I referred to you last year, you are an ISA 95 guru. I love using that word any chance that I get.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you remember in our last video, and there'll
myself
be a link that pops up somewhere, we were talking about parts 2 and parts 4. Part 2 is really the interested in the integration between your ERP or your level 4 system and your level 3 or your MES systems. And it's more of a high-level view. It makes more operations requests, operations responses, where it's really just a high level of, make me 10,000 left-handed blue widgets, and then how that actually occurs on the plant floor. Well, that doesn't get into that granularity. Where you get into that, of course, is part 4, where now you get into these work requests, work responses, all the same resource models are there. So there's the 4 resource models of your materials, your personnel, your equipment, and your assets. And then those all in some way form whatever those parts are. But part 3 seems to be a very misunderstood, or maybe it's more of an enigma. It's my position that part 3 of the standard is probably something you're already doing. You may just not realize you're doing it, or maybe it's not codified or formalized as much as you would like to have. So with that, Rene, let's dive right into the part 3 of the standard and tell us a little bit about what's going on. What are these activity models that people keep talking about?
Yeah, I think the part 3 is very useful to give you an overview, a sort of a checklist on all functionalities that are related to manufacturing IT. You have like the 4 domains. You have production, inventory, quality, and maintenance. So they're all like, you can see it as similar activities, but for a different domain. So what they did in the ISA 95 standard in part 3 is to make a generic activity model where you have different categories. And that's like the same, can be used for production, inventory, quality, and maintenance.
Cool.
So I think it's very useful, this standard, to get that checklist, but also when you, for example, writing down requirements, or you want to write the URS, a user requirement specification for a customer, then it's very good if you have this kind of checklist, and you can also make that document, writing that document based on those activities.
Cool.
So it's
that sounds like a good pro tip right there in terms of the checklist of, I know in, say, project management, you'll create these checklists of, are these the things that we did? It sounds like that's a great application within that part 3 standard of, if you include these parts of the part 3 standard, you're going to be in pretty good shape for knowing that what gets actually ultimately delivered is going to meet and satisfy the requirements of what it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, and you can use it on different levels. So, for example, when you have a manufacturing IT strategy or with a roadmap, then you can create an as-is situation and a to-be situation, and there you can also use these functionalities. But you can also do it for a specific project where you say, okay, this is the as-is situation and the to-be. So this is what we're going to change in the applications.
Yeah. Cool. So I've seen these diagrams before. I think people would probably recognize the activity diagrams. And as you mentioned, there's 4 different domains, if you will, for where they are. But do you have an example, or can we dive into something a little bit so we can start? Let's unpack this, as we like to say, of what exactly is going on in the part 3 of the standard.
I would like to start with this picture, where you again have those different levels of automation. What we also showed in the last podcast. So here you also see the difference between the level 4, the level 3. Level 4, this is more like the business planning, logistics, also those functionalities that are at that level. And then you have the level 3, where it's more about workflows, recipe control. And then you go into level 2, level 1, with the different time frames as well. So if you then move to this picture, this is more like, it's a lot to read, but it's also saying something about categories, functionality categories. And this is just like an example that's in the standard, but this could be different for each company. But also here you have those different categories, which will include a lot of different functionalities. And in the end, you need to decide, okay, which application is handling which part of this kind of functionalities. So sometimes a whole block, like marketing and sales, it's not something that you see in ISO 95 and in any manufacturing IT system. It's more outside of that. But if you look at production control, that's in the middle of it, and that's really an ISO 95 type of functionality. And in this example, they put it this dotted line, and you see that some of these topics are inside the scope, some are like halfway inside, some are outside, and that's something you need to decide as a company. Okay, what am I going to put in my level 3, and what am I going to put outside of that?
Sure. Yeah. And I think it's important to note that the ISA 95 standard, it's really around the function of a business. So it does not necessarily mean that just because information is flowing between these two pieces, that that's actually how you would do all of your networking and everything. The point is that in this functional area, this is the type of data that you would expect to see flowing back and forth. But and I think it's important for people to understand that. So please continue.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is a picture that I somewhere created myself to make it a bit more simplistic view on it. I always see it like, okay, what do we have available? And so you have material, personal, equipment, also physical assets are belonging to this. These are really the resources where you also can have capabilities of that. Then you get a part like how to produce. So this is all about the product definitions, the production schedule. And with that, you go to, okay, and when can it be produced? So this is more the detailed scheduling and dispatching. Then you go into production, and then you go to, okay, what is produced, when, and how. So this is also related to the part 2, the part 4, where we also were showing these kind of entities. But this is also, of course, all functionality. So in each block of this, you have functionalities. And that's how they translated it to this generic model. It's not exactly how it's in the standard. I pimped it up a bit. But it is the same categories. This is like a generic activity model. So it's always about the level 3 in the middle with those these blocks. And then on the upper side, you have the level 4. So you have your operation definitions, operation capabilities, the schedule and the performance. And on the lower side, here you have the level 1 and 2 with the connection to your equipment, all the operational commands and responses, and of course the process specific data. Then if you look at this, it's categorized. The blue ones, it's more reference data or definition data. The purple is pre-execution, so all about scheduling, dispatching. Then you get your actual execution, and then you get your post-execution.
Yeah, so I think referring back to that previous one, the blue is going to be more, what is it we're going to do? The purple is when are we going to do it? The green is okay, we're doing it, and then the yellow as well. How did we do now that we've just done it? So
yeah.
No, this is great. This certainly helps me understand what it is that's going on in the activity models for sure. So good stuff.
Yeah, the resources, that's all about the 4 resources and what is available, what is, for example, allocated. So it's really about that, the management of your resources and also the capabilities. The definition management, this is really about, for example, product definition. And this is how every block has some functionalities, but it's depending on the domain, it has specific meaning. So if I go to the next slide, then it's almost the same, but this is then the production one. And so you have your production resource management, your product definition management. And this is what you have for each of the domains. If you go, so I would like to go a bit deeper in each block.
Okay.
The production resource management is all about those 4 resources and how they are, what is the availability. The product definition is really about, okay, what is the product definition data? So how to make a product. For example, what kind of equipment or materials are needed. Then you go into detailed production scheduling. So this is about you receive the schedule, for example, from an ERP system or from an advanced planning and scheduling system. Then you, on your level 3, you go in for the detailed scheduling. So this is more about, for example, when you have you want to produce this kind of quantity of this product. Okay, then I'm going to make different batches for it. So I'm going to schedule it in a deeper level. Then you have your dispatching, where you're really going to allocate, for example, a production line, where you do some checks if it can be released, against which conditions can it be released. Then at a certain moment you start your execution. So then an order or an operation is really started, and then you can, for example, adjust some runtime parameters. You will record all kind of data or input from the operator. This is also tightly connected with the production data collection. So this is also getting all the data directly from the process or via this execution layer. It will get all the data, and that data needs to be translated in information. And so it can be tracking data, and if that's transformed, then you're going more to your tracking part, where you say, okay, how is my genealogy, for example, done? What did I consume? What did I produce? And how is that all related to each other? And in the end, you have your performance analysis, where you have your reporting part, your data analytics, all kind of what you're going to do, and for example, showing your planned production versus your actual production.
Okay.
So each block will have its own functionalities, and this is all described in this part 3 in detail, and that will really help you to make that categorization.
Okay, so you mentioned that one of the domains is maintenance, and for people that know me, I have a background in reliability and asset performance. So if I could, just so I understand, and for my personal learning on this, and I'm going to walk through what that might look like, say, within the maintenance domain for that. And of course, I always use a motor, a pump, or a compressor, some piece of rotating equipment. So I'm going to guess that production resource, that's more like the work instructions for, I need to go out and fix something. Here is the how you want to go about fixing it. There's all kind. There could be an operations manual, or there is a whole work instruction that is managed by the CMMS. But it tells me what it is that needs to be fixed. What are all the, going back to the ISA 95, the resource models, or what's the material, what are the personnel. What are those types of, what's needed there in order to go ahead and perform this maintenance? That's going to provide that guidance. Is that a fair statement so far?
Yeah, and I switch back to the generic activity model, because yes, it's then you should have the maintenance one. I don't have them now prepared, but
so it's like it's oftentimes it's material and it's people, but the resource is going to tell me what's the spare parts, and the definition is here's how you go in and fix it. Okay, so I'm good. I need to know what it is that I need to do, type of thing. And now I get into the schedulers and the planners. These are actually the people that know that there is an asset that needs to have some maintenance done to it. And I'm going to make sure that all of the parts or all the resources are there. I'm going to ensure that I have the right people that are associated with that particular job. And that's now going to be the scheduler and the planner of, I show up, I'm one of the maintenance technicians. I know I'm going to have some work to do today. And that's when the scheduler planner, scheduler and or planner, could be the same person. hands me what I'm going to call the proverbial clipboard, and here's what you have. This is what you're going to do today. So that's going to be that. When are we going to do it? Is that so far? Am I understanding this?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. And then now in the green section here, that's the actual execution. Now I'm actually out in the middle of repairing this piece of equipment. I have all the tools. I have all my spare parts. I've dropped my screwdriver 3 levels down, so I got to go down and retrieve it and pick it back up. And I'm losing all kinds of parts and using all kinds of sentence enhancers. And things are going great. So I'm actually doing the execution of the maintenance on that. So that's what's occurring in that green section. This is what I'm actually doing. Does that make sense? Perfect.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then at the end, the thing that I really hate doing is now I got to report what are the actual materials that I consumed, how much time did it actually take me to do that type of thing. Did I have a spare parts kit that I managed to dork up, so I actually had to go get a second one because I'm really not very good at this. I don't know why they let me fix something to begin with, but now I'm going to record all that information. I guess there's a little bit of data collection. And then finally at the end, we can take back a look, in this yellow section at the end of the month, and I can see, okay, how did everybody do on our maintenance tasks? What was our plan? What did we actually do? What were the resources? Who were the people? The time and materials, if you will, of all the things that occurred. And so these are all the things, and that would go into that. So is that really how this works in the maintenance domain, putting it all together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's then the same way for quality, for example. Also at the quality department or in the laboratory, and you have your resources also there. You have your definition, scheduling, dispatching. So all these activities you also have on your quality part, and the same for inventory, for the logistics and moving from a warehouse to production. All of that is also in the same categorization. You can use that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
on the
how
quality. Those are the quality checks that you would have to do. Of go out here's the quality check. Here's when you need to do it. Here's you actually doing it, and here's the results of that. So it's a lot of plan versus actual, regardless of what the domain is. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Cool.
And in the end, if you do that for all your domains, you get something like this, which could be like an input or an approach to create your strategy. You say, okay, I have my domains, I have all those functionalities. Besides that, there are also some extras like incident and deviation management, document management, configuration, security, regulatory compliance. If you have all of that, and then you have really a complete overview of all your functionalities that you have or that you want to have, and then you can decide, okay, what's in scope and which applications should be responsible for this or for a part of it. So yeah, you can really use this to create that big overview of your current situation and your future state.
Okay. So as we were walking through this, and I was just thinking, and this goes back to the comment that I made at the beginning of the podcast of, I know that there's all the production scheduling that occurs. I know that companies already do that. Same thing with maintenance. I mean, that to me is a pretty familiar process. I know that there's a lot of quality checks that occur throughout, and I know that those are documented. I'm not as familiar with the inventory side, which is fine. I just don't do much in supply chain and logistics, but I can certainly see how that would extend. So, it almost seems like, part 3 really isn't that challenging. It's just if you use it right, it can be an exceptionally powerful tool. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's for me, it always helped really to get that full picture. And like I said, it's also for me, it's sort of a checklist. It's sort of giving you an overview. You can go through it. You can discuss it with the customer for each category. Like, okay, what's your current state? I also, for example, have a questionnaire for each activity. I have some questions to get their current state. And then you could say, okay, and what is then the future state? You can give some advice, and together you can come to a roadmap. And the same for a product, for a project. When you're running a project, you can say, okay, this is impacting these kind of categories. So let's dive a bit deeper into that, and then you can come with your final like your overview, like what is impacted, what is the as is, what is the to be situation.
Perfect. So it sounds like combining these with the parts 2 and part 4, it becomes a very powerful tool, not only for developing that URS, as you mentioned, that user requirement specification, but it is just a great checklist of, like many standards and tools out there. If you used it right, it can be pretty powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right. Very cool. Anything else that we should know about the part 3 of the ISA 95 standard before we wrap it up?
No, I think it's just a brief introduction, right? So if people read the standard, you see every activity that we discussed is described in full detail. So
Sure.
I think it's worth to read that and then you deep dive a bit into it and you see what you want to use or not.
Yeah, I think the intent here is just provide an overview. I know there's a lot more granularity that exists within the standard, but certainly this gets, I think, people pointed in the right direction of what's going on here, and it helps them digest the rest of what's there. So with that, Renee, thank you so much for your time. It's always great to connect with you and your expertise around the ISA 95 standard and all the parts to it, and just your general, many years of experience in manufacturing. So, and for everybody, thank you again for joining. I look forward to seeing you on our future podcasts.